Hello, welcome to Soulprint Intuitive Tarot. So over the weekend, this channel passed a milestone. I put out one of my very first videos in this channel, late in February of 2019. So I have had 2 full years of enjoying and celebrating and creating a Soulprint family. Your support, your contributions, your comments, all of it has been absolutely spectacular. And I just wanted to say happy birthday to the Intuitive Tarot channel. And we wouldn't be here without, of course, every single one of you. And as you know, I adore each and every single one of you. So thank you so, so much. What an amazing celebration. And I don't have cake right here, but I promise you cake is in the picture for sure. Okay, so as I spoke about last week, I'm going to do a reading on the right wing. You probably noticed from the title of the video, it's called Right Looney. And that's kind of what I consider them, frankly. But I want to take a look at that. I mean, we've got Proud Boys now working their way into Canada. I believe there's actually some here in Alberta. And, you know, as that sort of energy, I don't even, it gains ground a little bit, but I think almost like more like gets attention. It's concerning on the one hand, and on the other hand, it's like energetically you can feel us moving so far past that. But yet that sort of them and us attitude that we're right, or we're right simply because we are white, is kind of a sickening attitude. So I want to just take a look at what's going on. There's certainly in the United States, there's a lot of investigations going on to, you know, certainly the January 6th riot, insurgents, but just sort of in a more broader view, I think I want to take a look at what's going on there. Also, for those of you who may have missed it, on Sunday, the Positive Energy Circle did another video creating protection around Capitol Hill in the United States and government buildings, including the White House. So, and the reason that was done is because you've got the March 4th date showing up very quickly in a couple of days. And that again is another time where these people somehow think that Trump is going to be restored to power. So I want to take a look and see if I can figure out what's going on with some of these people, what the future is for some of these kind of organizations. And I mean, they've been around for a long, long time. You know, starting, I guess, I don't know, but certainly since the KKK, you know, the Oklahoma bombings, like they're around. But I think because of Trump, they really did gain a toehold. And so I want to take a look at that and just see if we can get some clarity on what that looks like going forward. So here we go. As I did mention in my last video, for the next several weeks until things settle down, I'm going to be putting out 2 videos a week on the Intuitive channel, this channel, unless of course something really crazy happens, and then you know me, I'll jump on, and then 1 video a week on the Insights channel. And of course, for all of my subscribers to both channels, thank you. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, come on down. I have a question. So, information right wing, information right wing, information right wing. And you know, right wing, yeah, I don't even know if that's an accurate description because they really are extreme right. They're right extremists. You know, and the problem is you have these people who are disillusioned, like the QAnon people, and then the more white supremacist type groups, the more right, the more extreme groups are now, you know, kind of moving in on those people and trying to recruit them. The anti-vaxxers, for God's sakes, are getting drawn into these things. And I mean, I don't get the whole anyways, that's another story. Okay, so let's just see what we can see, shall we? Okay, so their power, how can I say this? Well, it may appear that their power is strengthening. I don't know that that's actually accurate. What is happening is they are just becoming more well-known. They're kind of a little bit more in our faces. But in terms of actual numbers, they really are diminishing. Now, this is not a death blow by any stretch of anybody's imagination, but they are not as powerful as I think sometimes we think they are when we sort of absorb the media focus on them, or we hear they've done something, you know, really dangerous, harmful to society, etc. But certainly energetically, it looks like, you know, in some ways, they've really used up a lot of their tricks. And of course, the more tricks they use up, the better a handle that government type agencies, etc., can get on them. And I mean, God knows government agencies everywhere are working very hard and very diligently to, you know, stay on top of the situation and monitor it, and certainly wherever possible, stop the threats, stop the attacks. But the more they sort of do in the public domain, the more information that law enforcement, intelligence, etc. gets. And by extension, the more understanding or awareness I suspect that the general public gets and understands and can come to terms with. You know, they flourish in the dark, in the shadows, in that sort of space and place where things are not seen clearly. And it is, you know, and the thing is their wishes, frankly, are different depending on the group. But you can sort of generally say, they want whatever country they reside in to be all white. They want white people to be considered superior and nobody else has value or less value. They want less government interference. Well, that makes sense because, of course, most of what they do is illegal, right? So I guess they don't want the government interfering. And their strength lies in their ability to rile up people's emotions, to get people feeling like the ground underneath them is so unstable that it is only by joining and banding together with these kinds of organizations that they can feel any safety or any sense of security. These are people, frankly, in the grand scheme of things, who really, really are fighting a losing battle. And it may not feel that way right now, okay? It might not. But right as I'm speaking, I'm getting that picture from, I'm not sure, the 1920s maybe, that were often shown with regards to Fred Trump and the KKK marches, right? And those big, massive marches with those guys looking foolish with their white hoods. And like, you can't, just in terms of volume, that's what I'm talking about, but the number of people who were involved, the number of people who accepted this as normal, the number of, just the size of the organization, it is not at all comparable to, or how I should say the reverse. Charlottesville is not at all comparable to that. Yes, there was a huge demonstration. Yes, that poor woman lost her life. Yes, people were injured. But it's not like there was, tens and 20 and thousands of people, tens of thousands of people marching. Okay? So they are diminishing. What's happening is because of, technology and, frankly, the politics of, not only Trump, but that kind of attitude of we are the chosen and everybody else is secondary or inferior. Because of that attitude and technology, they are now more able to spread their word. They are more able to recruit. But remember, they always stay, for the most part, in the shadows. So what you've got here is a group of people who are going to get louder and louder as they literally feel their numbers shrink and their power diminishes, because over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years, they are going to be reduced to such a degree that they almost will not exist. Now, I am not for 1 second suggesting we get to ignore them until then, because they're dangerous. They're dangerous because, in part, there is no logic to the way they think. They're not rational. And they're able to spin things. And the people who fall into their belief structure are followers. I'm sorry, they're sheep. They're the people who don't really think about what they're hearing. They simply absorb it wholesale, take it into their belief system. And when things don't turn out the way they anticipated, like, the entire slaughter that was supposed to take place on the inauguration, and Trump somehow descending from the sky as the president forever of the United States, they are simply somehow susceptible to having the story twisted or turned, a quarter turn, a quarter turn, a quarter turn, until what they believed yesterday is no longer really what they believe today, except somehow in their own minds, it has been a fluid shift, as opposed to recognizing that they were believing things that were inaccurate, that weren't true, and that were not going to happen. And instead of facing that, they are just told another story that allows them to keep on. And so the people in positions of power with these organizations, they really do hold a great deal of sway over the people who are in their organizations. And because things have become so tribal lately, that it really is a matter of, I will believe, defend, and do whatever I have to do for my tribe. And there is no understanding, compassion, appreciation, respect for any other tribe, for any other way of thinking. And ultimately, that is going to be their downfall. But for right now, they still have a fair amount of strength, and they are becoming increasingly violent and volatile, because for 4 years, it was not only condoned, it was supported, it was cheered on, it was completely acceptable, and there was never any pushback from the Trump administration saying, stop it, right? I mean, I'm sorry. What was that? Stand down and stand by? That is hardly a condemnation, as everybody who hadn't realized it certainly realized it on January 6th. So now, the thing to remember is, though, according to this, it's looking like there was a little bit of infighting going on within these various groups. See, in order for them to actually gain strength, right, they would need to unify under one message, right? Because that was where they would get their numbers. That's where the strength would come in. But they can't do that because you've got volatile people, you've got a lot of egos, and I'm sorry, but by and large, you have people who are not very smart. You have people who follow and not lead. And then you have these leaders who are not going to come together with other like leaders to create the kind of strength. So you're always going to have these fractions, right? And what comes right down to it, well, they may come together independently for a specific situation like January 6th, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be any glue that actually holds them together, because when it comes right down to it, they really are incredibly, incredibly tribal. And so they will work together when it serves their purpose. But overall and generally speaking, what you have are people who are not willing to step down off of their individual soapboxes, as it were. Now, I wouldn't be surprised in the next while. What I mean by that is somewhere a year from now, 2 years from now, that kind of thing, where you may actually see them go into a little bit of a pause or a retreat, because things are going to get so volatile and so toxic that at some point there really is going to be that sense of they need to sort of settle down, kind of retreat a little bit. It's like it's going to get too hot, right? And they're not going to be able to sustain whatever momentum they managed to build up, certainly in the last 4 years under Trump. The Biden administration has a no tolerance for this. The intelligence, no tolerance. The security, homeland security, whatever, no tolerance. And so as more and more of these people literally come up against the law, you're going to see this sort of pulling back and backing down. As they retreat, they're sort of going to be looking for, honestly, I'm literally hearing the words, the next Messiah. Right? They're going to be looking for the next leader who can corral them once again and move them into an area of importance and significance. The problem is that the world is changing. The world is moving so far beyond them and their ideas and their ridiculous notions. The world is becoming more inclusive. The world is less tolerant of that kind of tribal behavior. The world does not agree with them. So in some ways, it's sort of like the GOP party, right? The ones who belong are like loud and obnoxious, and they get attention. But when you actually look at their numbers, the numbers are diminishing, because more and more people are saying no, 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 no. And, let's not forget, this shift that is taking place on the earth, it has been shifting for the last 100 years. Literally, the people who were born in the early 1900s, it is their descendants who are now, their descendants who became the hippies, the flower children, the ones that planted the seed for the next several generations. And it's their descendants who became, the crystals and the indigos. It is their right? And so more and more, this more spiritually based, this more inclusive, this more enlightened, this more true, real energy is taking hold. And so more and more, those kinds of behaviors, while right now they're yelling loud, but they're yelling it because in some ways it's almost like a death scream, right? It's that, something that is attacked and put into a corner and backed into a wall and feels their demise coming. That's when they are the most dangerous. That's when they get the loudest and they lash out the most. And that's kind of the area or the era that we're going to be in with these people for the next while. But thank goodness that you have a lot of governments, not only the Biden one, but governments around the world in different countries who are really, really stepping up and saying, enough is enough. This is not acceptable. And so what you have is a coming together of the most sort of conservative aspects of society clumping together with these extreme right wings. But part of the reason they're clumping together is because they understand, if not intellectually, at least viscerally, that they are becoming diminished. So while they are expanding, right, that's where you see them sort of taking hold in places maybe that were very conservative, but not necessarily that right wing. And now you can see them sort of shifting and moving into those positions. And because I know a little bit more about the country, I'm speaking also of Canada, where, you have these groups. And listen, I am not saying by any stretch that Canada doesn't have its own racial divides. It doesn't have its problems. But generally speaking, we are far, far less tolerant than some other countries when it comes to that kind of racist behavior. We tend to jump on it faster, and there tends to be sort of more unity in terms of big government agencies, in terms of what they're not going to allow to sort of flourish and grow. It's condemned more quickly, I think is what I'm trying to say. But they're definitely trying to take hold. And when you have political parties that are also recognizing that their way is not really going to gain power and strength going forward, as they start to realize that their message is no longer falling on sympathetic ears, that is where you're going to see these two sort of groups kind of coming together. But remember, the strength going forward is center left. It's just as simple as that. It's center left, because that is sort of a more spiritual way. That is more in keeping with sort of the whole Age of Aquarius energy. It is in keeping with the thinning of the veil and the fourth and fifth dimensions becoming more and more mainstream. They're a dying breed, but as I said, because they're being backed into a corner now, this really is when, in many ways, they're kind of like at their most dangerous. So let's be grateful that many, many governments are really kind of doing everything they can to be on top of it. Let's be very grateful that politically things have settled down, at least to the degree in, globally, that government agencies are talking again freely and more comfortable to other government agencies. There's there's an increased flow, if you will, of information that's passing between countries, because certainly under Trudeau, that information had really been, a lot of it had been held in abeyance because countries couldn't trust the United States. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the reality. They couldn't trust what under the Trump government would happen to that information, because he had a way of infiltrating all of these agencies that were supposed to be autonomous. Well, Trump doesn't get autonomous. And so those agencies that never ever should have been politicized were politicized. And so other countries were simply holding back their information. As that is opening up, as that trust is sort of rebuilding now, you've got much freer communication. And that in and of itself is a very, very good sign in terms of trying to, frankly, break the back of these people. Going forward, it's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of work that takes place. But as you see more and more people simply becoming intolerant of what they talk about, what their philosophies are, and again, I'm talking extreme right. I'm also talking very conservative, even political parties. They are going to be losing their grip because going forward, the actual numbers of people who really will adhere to that old belief structure are diminishing. And that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be 20-year-olds running around, with tiki torches and carrying on. But it does mean that there's fewer and fewer of them. And over time, these people are going to become more and more ostracized. Let's remember, I'm old enough to remember when you could actually smoke in a doctor's office. Okay, I'm old enough to remember when people were in a social gathering, they would have one more drink for the road. Things change, they evolve. And as they change and evolve, the vast majority moves towards that which simply makes more sense. It resonates with more people. It feels like that is the way in which society, civilization should move forward. Yeah, so you know what? You've got, there's going to be a lot of information campaigns that come out going forward from governments, from different agencies, really trying to shed some rather harsh light on these organizations in an ongoing attempt to snap their back, diminish their messages. And more, there's going to be a little bit more clarity and understanding of how to combat the really extreme emotional reactions that these kinds of groups, frankly, depend on to gain their strength. Always remember, it is those who feel diminished, those who feel as if whatever it was they had is being taken away from them unfairly by others who are less than they are. I mean, that's what it boils down to in a nutshell. And those emotions are going to be shifting in a way that diminishes the power of some of this extreme right. But it's going to take time. I mean, I don't mean to paint this like really rosy picture, like it's all going to be fine, don't worry about it. We have things to worry about because they're dangerous. But my message, I suppose, is they're dangerous because this is among their last dying gasps of breath, okay? That's why they're so dangerous, because their power is diminishing and more they are becoming something that is just rejected by more and more people. Yeah, you're definitely going to see that a real, so I guess what I'm saying is in places where there are still very, where the conservative type governments have a real stronghold, that's where you're going to see these things pop up with more force. And that is not only in the United States, red states, okay? But, literally there was here in Alberta, which has long been considered a very conservative province. There was a rally at the government grounds here in Edmonton just a very short while ago, and tiki torches of all things, were on display in that rally. So what I'm saying is, the more conservative an area that you live in, the more likely you're going to see more of this kind of activity. And for all of us who really, really do not condone this kind of activity, it again is up to us to do what we can to let the government know that this is not something that we appreciate, not something we expect, not something that we want. And in fact, if they're going to support that, they're going to lose our support. It is, something to be very mindful and very aware of going forward, that there's definitely this kind of energy, because you have two elements that are both being diminished. And so they're coming together in sort of a parasitic relationship. Ultimately, they lose. But for now, they still have resources. They still have support. And so it is important that people be mindful of and aware of the danger. And I think almost more than the danger is the anger that they really immerse themselves in. Okay, so I guess the short message of this reading is hang in there, be aware, be mindful, do what you can to not only stay alert, but to, certainly let government agencies, etc., know that this is not acceptable to you as a citizen of whether it is a city or a state or a province, the county, whatever it is. And remember that as we move forward as a civilization to a more enlightened way of life, it is incredibly important that we stay positive and we do not feed the lower vibrational energies, because that, of course, is where they get their strength. When they evoke fear in us, they're empowered. All right. I hope that was helpful. I hope it brought some clarity or some insight. Thank you so, so much for being here. Until next time, take care. Be well. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.